Imagine standing in the endless white silence of Alaska. The snow swallows every sound, and the air cuts like glass against your skin. Out here, time feels different. Days stretch on without sunlight, and nights press down like a heavy secret. It's the kind of place that forces you to listen to the wind, to the ice, maybe even to things you're not supposed to hear. Alaska is breathtaking, but behind that beauty lies something darker. Stories that don't make the tourist brochures, calls from voices that shouldn't exist, photographs of things no human eye was meant to see. Entire communities bound by secrets that linger like shadows on frozen lakes. I want to ask you something. When was the last time you felt completely cut off from the world where no one could help you? Now imagine that in those moments, something or someone was reaching out from beyond, reminding you that you're not as alone as you thought. Tonight, we're peeling back the ice to reveal 6 true, disturbing Alaskan horror stories. Tales whispered in static phone lines, frozen in photographs, and carved into the wilderness itself. These aren't just stories of survival, they're stories of what waits in the silence. Marcus had worked as a state trooper dispatcher in Alaska for years. He was used to strange calls, panicked hikers, accidents in the snow, hunters who'd gone too far. But nothing prepared him for the night. The line buzzed to life, and a man introduced himself as Dmitry Vorov. His voice was calm, almost too calm. He explained that he had died 3 days ago from a heart attack. That his body was lying outside his cabin, frozen solid, untouched by animals because the cold had preserved him. Marcus listened, torn between disbelief and a creeping sense of dread. Dmitry described the exact location of his cabin, the way his hands were curled against his chest, even the cracked lantern near his feet. The call lasted 37 minutes. There were long pauses filled with slow, shallow breathing, as though the caller was struggling against something invisible. Then, silence. Investigators arrived at the cabin the next morning. Everything Dmitry described was true. His frozen body lay exactly as he said. But here's the part that still haunts Marcus. The cabin had no power. The phone line had been disconnected for months. So who called that night? And why was there breath, human breath, on the line of a man long gone? Isabella Martinez thought she was chasing beauty. As a National Geographic photographer, she had traveled the globe capturing rare natural wonders. Alaska was supposed to be her masterpiece, a journey to document the elusive ice ghost phenomenon, the eerie refractions of light that dance across glaciers like wandering spirits. At first, her daily check-in calls from a remote cabin sounded normal. She laughed about the cold, talked about her work, even mentioned how breathtaking the night skies were. But within a week, her voice shifted. She spoke about shadows that didn't move like shadows. About feeling watched even though the landscape was empty. Then came the photographs, thousands of them. When examined, nearly every image revealed tall, crystalline figures standing among the snowdrifts, too symmetrical to be tricks of light, too consistent to be coincidence. And the strangest part? They began appearing closer, first at the edge of her cabin, then at the window. Finally, blurry but unmistakable, standing over her while she slept. When a search team finally reached her, Isabella was alive but barely. Her skin was icy to the touch, her body temperature impossibly low, as though the cold itself had seeped inside her. All she could whisper was, "They followed me." Weeks later, she vanished without a trace. The last photos recovered from her camera? Crystal-like beings standing among crowds in airports, cafes, and city streets. So, were the ice ghosts bound to Alaska, or did Isabella bring them back with her? Seasonal jobs in Alaska aren't unusual. People fly in from all over the world for quick money, long hours, and a chance to disappear from their old lives. That's exactly what brought Rashid Hassan to a remote fish cannery tucked along the frozen coast. It seemed ordinary enough until he heard whispers about processing Unit C. Unlike the other stations, Unit C wasn't open to everyone. Rashid's first glimpse shook him. The fish there weren't just packed, they were injected with some chemical that made them look alive. Their eyes remained clear. their bodies warm, almost pulsing, as if the ocean still flowed inside them. Then came the food. Workers in Unit C were given special meals to keep them strong. Rashid noticed they stopped getting tired. They healed quickly from cuts and bruises, but their laughter changed, their eyes grew glassy, and some stopped talking altogether, moving through shifts like machines. When Rashid cut his hand badly, the wound closed in minutes. No scar, no pain. That's when the truth hit him. The cannery wasn't just preserving fish, it was preserving people, transforming them into something that didn't need rest, something that couldn't leave. By the end of his contract, Rashid wasn't planning his trip home. He wasn't planning at all, he just kept working, hours blending into days, days into years, the smell of fish in his lungs, no aging, no escape. Just endless labor by the shore. And if you ever taste fish that seems too fresh, too alive, ask yourself whose hands packed it, and are they still packing it now? Kenji Nakamura had been flying the Alaskan skies for decades. To him, turbulence, storms, and whiteouts were nothing new. But when he agreed to ferry a group of researchers to Lake Clark, he stumbled into something no training could prepare him for. His last radio transmissions were chilling. He spoke of animals, wolves, moose, even birds moving in synchronized patterns, like soldiers on parade. He reported seeing geometric shapes etched into the landscape below, glowing faintly through the snow. His instruments told him he was climbing, but outside the cockpit window the mountains loomed closer, as if the plane was sinking. Then silence. Rescue teams eventually found the wreck. But nothing added up. The fuel tanks were full. The emergency beacon was intact but eerily quiet. GPS logs showed impossible flight paths, like the plane had folded in on itself. And the black box? 17 minutes of audio no one can explain. Static, laced with voices that didn't belong to anyone on board, heavy footsteps echoing inside the cabin. And the final sound, like tall, slow-moving figures waiting beneath the crash site. Kenji's story isn't unique. Other pilots whisper about that same stretch of sky. Compasses spinning wildly, radios cutting to silence, entire aircraft blinking off radar for minutes at a time. They call it the confusion zone. So what is it? A natural anomaly? A tear in space? Or a hunting ground where something watches from above? Aoife O'Brien wasn't looking for horror. She was a marine biologist from Ireland, fascinated by Alaska's deep, ancient lakes. One winter, she set out on Lake Chalatenna with her grandfather's handmade fishing tools. It was supposed to be a quiet study trip until her line snagged on something that wasn't fish. She pulled, and from the black water rose a carved bone hook, slick with ice. The design was old, far older than any culture she knew. That night, the hook trembled in her hand, as if alive. Then the voices began. Not words, exactly more like vibrations traveling through her fishing line. They called themselves the Sluhag Mara, serpentine beings living beneath the ice since before the last ice age. They told her of preservation chambers, vaults hidden below the frozen depths, holding knowledge too vast, too dangerous for mankind. They warned her of intruders who would one day try to uncover it, and then they made their offer: become a guardian, leave the surface world behind, protect their secrets for eternity. Aoife accepted. She stopped checking in with her colleagues, stopped answering calls. Eventually, she vanished altogether. Locals still whisper about a lone figure seen fishing on forbidden lakes, her eyes pale as frost, her line stretching deep into waters no one dares disturb. And the bone hook? They say if you find one, don't touch it. Because once the Sluhag Mara chews you, the lake will never give you back. Kwame wasn't a typical Alaskan homesteader. He was a software engineer from the city, tired of deadlines, emails, and crowded streets. So he did what many dream about. He built a cabin near Denali, powered by solar panels and stocked with enough supplies to last years. At first, everything seemed perfect. The wilderness was quiet, clean, pure. But his journals told a different story. In the first year, Kwame wrote about learning to live with silence. By the second, he mentioned voices from the land, whispers that rose with the wind, footsteps circling the cabin at night. His entries grew jagged, sentences shorter, as though something was rushing him. By the third year, the words barely made sense. He claimed the forest was teaching him not with language, but with shapes, shadows, and symbols. He sketched figures in the margins, tall and faceless, standing between trees. He wrote about knowledge humans were never meant to hold, knowledge that pulled at his mind like an undertow. When rangers finally reached his homestead, they found food neatly stored, clothes folded, tools in place. But Kwame was gone. His final journal pages were unreadable, filled with spirals, glyphs, and frantic drawings that seemed to move if you stared too long. Some believe he lost himself to loneliness. Others think the land claimed him, absorbed him into its endless memory. And if you walk near Denali's edge on a still night, some swear you can hear his voice humming low, as though the mountain itself is speaking back. Alaska is more than snow and silence. It's a land that holds its secrets close, revealing them only to those who stray too far into its frozen heart. Tonight we walked through 6 stories, calls from the dead, crystalline beings caught on film, workers preserved beyond time, pilots trapped in impossible skies, guardians chosen by ancient waters, and a homesteader who vanished into madness. Each tale reminds us of something unsettling. The wilderness doesn't just test survival, it tests reality itself. And maybe that's the scariest part. Not knowing if what you hear, see, or feel is truly yours, or if the land is whispering back. So the next time you find yourself in the dark, alone with the silence, ask yourself, do you really know what waits just beyond the light? Remember, out here, you don't know everything about the outside world.